Welcome to the Hard Signal Podcast, a production of Next Gen Insight. I'm Clayton Tidwell, its founder. Our guest today is Dan Bieser, founder of Tabal Chocolate, a bean-to-bar chocolate maker in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. Welcome to Hard Signal, Dan. Before
Thanks.
we get started, I would like for you to tell our audience how a former high school teacher found himself making chocolate.
Yeah, it's a journey. I was actually a special ed teacher, guidance counselor, and then a grade school administrator, and then a high school principal. Kind of about 25 years in the education world. Definitely learned a lot about working with people and creativity, working within a bureaucracy and following rules and all those sorts of things. And then in the spring of 2012, a friend of mine was going to Toronto to learn how to make chocolate at a fabulous chocolate maker named Michael Sacco in Choco Soul is the name of his company. And he said, yeah, just come on up and hang out with us. We're not going to charge you, maybe buy us lunch or something. And went up there and spring break. I needed to get out of Dodge, and we went up for 4 days, just hung out with them and learned about the bean to bar chocolate making process and everything about sourcing and the philosophy and the values that comes with that. So yeah, they were wonderful, and that was my start.
And then what was the foundational beginnings of Tabal, and where do you find yourselves today?
Yeah. The foundational beginnings is always ask your spouse if you're going to quit your stressful, good paying job and jump off the entrepreneur cliff, and have a good teammate on your side, because it's going to be a journey. You don't start off by pluck, plucking down, $500,000 and hope you're going to make a 500,000. It is a journey of building relationships and learning skills. When I started in 2012, there was about 20 chocolate makers in the whole United States. And just think about the first 20 craft breweries or the first 20 craft coffee shops. And that's where we were. There weren't many of us. There weren't many tools. So we had to either invent or kind of do it yourself, make our own tools to work with the chocolate and start small scale. And we've built from just myself working in the garage to we have about a dozen employees making chocolate and running our shop, and another additional dozen that go out and do our 350 events a year. So we're out in the community, and just every year we're growing. And yeah, it's been a wonderful journey.
That's an amazing number of events. In essence, one a day or 7 a week or something like that. That's crazy. So we've used the term chocolate maker, and I know many people have heard the term chocolatier. So when people walk into a chocolate shop, they're going to assume that someone made the chocolate. But what is a chocolatier versus a chocolate maker? I suspect that knowledge gap is wider than most people.
I think it is a very wide gap, and that's part of our challenge to educate people about the difference. First of all, if they walk into a chocolate shop 90 times out of 100 or 95 times out of 100, it's not a chocolate maker, it's a chocolatier. So chocolatiers are wonderful people, and they make wonderful candy products with chocolate that they're buying from one of the very few factories in the United States. Maybe they might get some from Europe, but they're buying it in the 50-pound box by the pallet. Typically, they're going to sign a contract for whatever it might be. I've never bought chocolate. Might be $3 a pound, and they sign up for 10 or 20,000 pounds for the year, and they kind of sign a contract with the chocolate factories that supply their chocolate. Almost all that chocolate has soy lecithin in it, and because it's easier to work with, and that's kind of what the big chocolate factories make. On the flip side, I'm a chocolate maker, and the true sign of a chocolate maker is the machinery, seeing that bean to bar process using either ball grinders or stone grinders or something to grind the chocolate. We grind ours in stone grinders for 3 days continuously. But first we have to sort the beans, we roast the beans, we have to crack and winnow the beans, separating the shell from the inner nibs. And then we take those nibs and stone grind for 3 days, add the sugar, and it's a labor and time intensive process to make single origin dark chocolate. Takes us about a week to make one batch of one flavor. So we're doing a lot of in between work. All those different steps take time.
Now, Tabal means in Mayan relationship.
Yes.
And you have chosen a strategy of fair trade sourcing, going to farmers and building long-term relationships and buying directly from them. You had one farmer that you worked with over 3 years forever buying any single bean from him. That's a long bet on an unproven supplier.
Yeah.
What were you actually seeing in that relationship that made you think it would be worth the investment?
To be honest, my Spanish is very basic, so I think finding someone that could speak English and communicate with me was a good starting point. He was Miguel, is the person you're referring to, Santander, Colombia, and he was intelligent, so he had a chemical engineering degree. He grew up in the jungles of Colombia. His father had a 50-year history of growing cacao before they were pushed off their farm by some of the rebels in the area. After a short career in engineering, Miguel decided to go back to the farm and kind of revitalize the farm, as well as bring some new knowledge and expertise to his community. And now he's one of the most respected cacao growers in all of Colombia. I think just seeing his passion, seeing his appreciation of fine flavor cacao. So I think there's a lot of farmers out there who grow commodity or generic type cacao using old school fermentation methods, but he really wanted to bring up the level of the quality of the cacao and went and in smaller batches, and to teach these other farmers that you can double your annual income just by changing your fermentation techniques and by pruning different and pollinating your trees different and grafting on trees and some very good agricultural processes that help improve the life of the farm and the productivity of the farm. So I saw a lot of good things. So they're just a few.
Now, because it's possible you have crop failure risk when you're sourcing from single source farmers, I'm sure you spread that risk by having relationships with numerous cacao farmers. If one has a bad year, can't scale, um, do you able to increase your buy from the others?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the last couple of years, the commodity market for cacao, we don't deal on the commodity market, but a lot of the
Right.
farmers use that as the basis for their pricing. Just went crazy in 24 and 25. I mean, it literally went from 3,300 a metric ton all the way up to $12,000 a metric ton. Yeah, a metric ton is 2,200 pounds. And I tell people, just think about your gallon of milk that goes from $3 a gallon to $12 a gallon.
Yeah.
And it caused us to shift a little bit of our buying. But at the same time, we're extremely committed to the farmers that we work with. And we weathered those instability periods of time. And but we also shifted to some little less expensive origins and tried to weather that storm, so to speak.
Is it a fair guess then that your relationships, because of those long-standing relationships and your fair trade practices with these farmers, that these farmers, sure, they were going to get more money from you, but they didn't go up triple, 3.5 times, right? They were like, okay, we'll absorb some of this as well to maintain the relationships. Well,
No,
maybe not so much.
but because of our commitment to the farmers, we paid what they asked.
Okay.
I'm quite frankly, I'm not a negotiator.
Uh-huh.
I pay them what they feel like they earn. And for years and years, they've been underpaid. And so it's about time. It sounds counterintuitive, but as much as we like to make a profit, that's not our primary motive. Our primary motive is supporting farmers while exposing people to high quality chocolate, whatever it takes to get it. And if I can pay a premium and some extra money, it sounds counterintuitive, but I kind of feel good about that because now they can plant more trees, they can develop their farms. If we're in this with them for the long haul, it makes no sense for me to gouge them, down to a lower price when if we can manage that, I'm going to give them every penny extra that I possibly can. It doesn't sound like a good business practice, but I'm more in it for the long term. And I'd rather help develop their farms and keep them healthy and happy.
Well, you're not answering to shareholders on a quarterly basis. You're the
Well,
shareholder and you're thinking long term. So
yeah.
there's great strategic benefit to that. So you basically took the entire hit on your margin and even passed on very little to your customers?
We passed on quite a bit to our customers.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but our customers, actually, our sales went up last year. So yeah, I think they got it. They understood. They understand our mission. Yeah, we grew as a company quite a bit last year.
Very
Even
nice.
though we raised our bar price by $2 a bar. So they got it. We didn't really have to say, oh, it's because of the tariffs. They read the news and they support what we're doing.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that not only did you have the shock of the cacao exploding in price, but then the tariffs were slapped on somewhere around what, $500 a pallet?
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
That's about.
So
So I don't know if the rumor is, they're going to try and give all that money back, but I don't know if we'll ever see any of it. I'm not sure where that's going now because it was illegal by the Supreme Court. So yeah, how are they going to give back $100 billion? People, I don't know.
yeah, are you looking to seek to get refunds of those tariffs? Because
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, you
Absolutely.
should. Absolutely. So you say your customers stayed loyal, but they're still price sensitive. Did you see a number where you started to lose them, or that they were able to absorb that $2 bar increase and
Yeah.
didn't blink?
No, yeah, we went from $8 up to $10 for our average bar, and
Hmm.
actually we added some additional bars at the $12 price point, and those just sold great too. I think it helps that we're in the wonderful frugal Midwest, that people that our prices have been low comparatively nationally. That if you would take my chocolate bar that's on the shelf there for $10 and it's a 3-ounce bar. If you took that anywhere else outside of here, either coast, they're
It's a
selling
$20 bar, right?
they're selling a 2-ounce bar for 15 or 20.
Hmm.
So we're very low priced, super high quality chocolate. And yeah, so there's that Midwestern frugal dynamic going on, but we're trying to get closer to the actual price we should be charging.
People
Um,
are going to pay for quality and artisanship.
yeah.
That's proven. So, we're single estate, you're not blending, you're stone grinding in small batches, and that means every run is different. So it's a unique experience, different fat content, different cacao levels, different characteristics, depending on the beans. So in wine, vintage variation is a selling point. In
Yeah.
a chocolate bar that a customer buys maybe every month, could it be a bit confusing or feel like inconsistency? How do you manage that tension?
I think in a couple different ways. Number one, we've got a variety of different origins from Peru. So we might have 3 or 4, I think we might have 5 different Peruvian origins. And it's like saying, well, Napa Valley wine is great, but not every farm is great. So I want to try a couple of different wines from Napa Valley. Same thing with Peru. And we encourage them to try the different ones and they can compare. I think that keeps it exciting for them because uh, um, a bean from Marañón versus Tumbes, Peru, or Santander, or different places have different flavor notes and flavor profiles. And even though within those regions, you're getting different farms with different flavor notes based on the, I like to say, the terroir, the soil, and the climate. And 60% of the flavor comes from the fermentation method that the farmer uses. So that's extremely important considering that. And we absolutely celebrate, the what do you call that? From year to year, the different vintage of
Vintage.
the canal, yep, vintage. Because just like wine, there might have been a forest fire, or there might have been a hurricane that's going to make it salty, or rain, or too much sun. All those factors affect the bean quality. And yeah, we celebrate those differences, and our customers love it, that they want to try something. This is totally different from the last time I tried this origin. And that keeps them excited, just like a wine.
Now you're also selling some other chocolate products, just not bars, particularly like you're going into the culinary side and the craft brewing side by selling some liquid chocolate. Are you sourcing that from maybe batches that didn't meet your standard?
Not necessarily, no. We always deal in super high quality premium beans. That's the only thing we have. And yeah, we work with breweries nationwide and some in Canada to sell the cocoa nibs. They use that to flavor the beer for chocolate stout or a brownie porter. We've got a handful of breweries that use the nibs, and typically they would throw them in the dumpster when they were done. And some of these local breweries were like, why don't you give them back to us? We're going to dry them out. Now now it's a raspberry stout infused cocoa nib. We dry the nibs out and then we stone grind them back into chocolate. So now you have a raspberry stout chocolate infused beer bar. And then we sell the chocolate back to the breweries, and they love pairing that chocolate with that same beer. And it's a real cool thing.
I need to try that beer. That's
Plus, we're zero waste. We're into
I love it, yeah.
using everything as much as possible. We also have another product. We call it Choleek chocolate liquid. So some breweries don't want to use the nibs. They want just to dump a liquid into the batch, or we sell it by the 5-gallon pail or by the gallon. And it's 100% cacao and distilled water blend. And yeah, they just dump it into the batches to give the beer a chocolate flavor. And we also sell that by the pint to individual consumers too. So yeah, those are a few. That's one of the products. We also make an awesome chocolate hazelnut spread. We
Oh,
also have a chocolate pistachio spread. We have 4 varieties of chocolate tea. So we have a plain. This is also reusing the skins of the cacao bean. We have a plain. We have a peppermint rooibos, a blueberry rooibos, and a masala chai. I should say chocolate masala chai, chocolate blueberry rooibos, tea. Those are teas. We also sell cacao nibs by the bag or by the pound, or big breweries by the hundreds of pounds. We have a whole variety of what else is there? Gift packs and things for the holidays. We sell a variety of hot chocolates, kind of in 2 different categories. One is more of a mix, like a powdered mix with our 100% dark chocolate. And then the other one is drinking chocolate, which is literally our chocolate ground up. Sell that by the bag too. That would be a more premium version of the hot chocolate, and lots of other projects of products. We've got about 200 different SKUs.
wow. I did not think you had that many. I knew you had quite a few, but not that's amazing. So you told me before the show that your constraint is it's not demand. Everything you make sells usually within just a couple months.
Yeah.
The constraint's production. But as you mentioned earlier, you've got 350 events a year, your retail shop, your wholesale accounts, and your direct to consumer all competing for the same inventory. Without a formal allocation system, how do you decide what gets made and what gets prioritized when you can't make everything?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I think, well, we have a room with that keeps our inventory. Once a week, our 2 head chocolate makers go through and they take an inventory of bars and other materials. I think because we have so many SKUs when we would go out to an event, my motto is we take what we have. We have so much variety of product. It's really I'm not going to get stressed when if we have 40 variety of bars and we don't have ten of the varieties, because you have 30 other varieties. So my motto is we take what we have and not be stressed about what we don't have. And what we take sells great. Yes, if we know a certain bar like our Costa Rica sea salt is our number one bar, we always try and have some kind of our top 10 in stock and make sure we have enough for a big event. But, on a weekend, we might go to like 6 events on a Saturday. And so before that, we start loading the kits, and we kind of have a stack of boxes for each event. And we try and make sure we have enough of the best-selling items for each event. We try not to get stressed about it. It's just chocolate.
It's just chocolate, okay. So, you mentioned previously to me that you were, wanting to get a better inventory system eventually. What decisions are you making now that a system would make easier?
Yeah, I think we're always trying to raise the level of our communication. I think it's been a challenge because sometimes we have to store things in alternate locations. When we have we're trying to stock up right now actually for the fall, but if we get, like 40 cases of chocolate, we have to take it off site and store it in a cool, dry place. So we'll keep inventory of whatever that is. So we know that we need to bring that back. We have a big event coming up and we're going to need some of that inventory. But yeah, to be honest, it is a challenge when you have product going out. The one you forgot to mention is our online website too. You know,
Oh,
s-
I was definitely gonna mention that.
yeah, so you have the website, you have the wholesale, you have all the events and our retail shop. It's coming and it's going and coming back. So that's the challenge. I've been to many, many events and coming home at 9, 10 at night after a long day in the hot sun or the cold winter.
Mhm.
You don't feel like counting hundreds of bars that you might be bringing back. So they bring it back and we have a crew that kind of goes through each kit and puts it back in place, back into inventory. Yeah. If we had more full-time people just to manage inventory, maybe you could do that. You could beep it in and beep it out, but then you're beeping it back in. When it comes back, if it doesn't get sold at an event, it's a challenge. I'm
Yeah.
not going to say, but we don't have a dedicated person. We all just step up and help manage that. Shoe in 15 years. So we're doing pretty good.
Well, given everything, the sourcing complexity, the price volatility, the production constraints, is there a version of Tabal at twice the current size, or does the model only work at the scale where you're at?
We've been actively looking for a second larger location to increase our capacity for production as well as for larger classes. Like I'm a little nervous. I've got a class for 18 on Saturday, and we just have a small retail shop, and that's maxed out kind of. But we could easily do a class for 40 or 50 people if we had a larger space. So that's in the works. We've been hunting for the right location. That's good for us. We would scale up our machinery, probably go to more like ball mills. My dream is to have a packaging machine and also maybe like a cooling tunnel, but all those take space that we don't have. So right now we're just trying to keep outselling our production, and then when we're ready to make that jump, we're like, okay, now we're back at production levels, is matching the sales and keep growing. I don't want to have sales under production because you make that leap and then you don't have enough income
Yep.
to justify larger machines. We might have to spend $500,000 on our next set of larger machines and in a new space. So, yeah, we're always thinking about that. I've got some great ideas about which machines to get and increase our production. I think it right now it all depends on our space and continuing to grow our sales.
Well, that sounds great. Dan, I want to thank you for joining me today. It's been a wonderful conversation. And for everybody out there, go to the show notes and click on Tabal Chocolate and buy some really top end, high quality artisan chocolate from Dan. Dan, thank you so much. And I hope to speak with you again someday.